Hi guys, welcome to Fabulous Nuts ASMR Christmas readings. I am so excited. So tonight's reading is going to be a more modern story than last night. I am getting myself set. Alright. I hope you guys get into these. I really love reading Christmas stories, and these will all be good for the entire family. Tonight's story is, the title is Christmas Stories, and it's by Eugene Fuller, and she considered herself the story lady. It was written in 1916. So let's just jump on in. These will be more classic tales of what we're used to. Please remember that my camera, my phone that I'm recording on, my chat doesn't show up. So between stories, we'll stop and visit for a second. How about that? Here we go. This is the foreword of the book. We're all children, young and old, at Christmas time. We love to talk and think about Santa Claus and the gifts which he will bring to us, and like to plan how we may play Santa Claus and make someone else happy. Santa Claus embodies this spirit of self-sacrifice and service, and so we will enjoy going into our dreams on a visit to Santa Claus Land. And what fun we will have when we join with the fairies and dear Claus and trim a cake for Santa. And then the story, Squeak, and the scare box. You know, such things really, truly happen on your own tree. So look out when you open your Jack-in-the-Box. The legend of St. Nicholas and his long silken purse will help you understand our customs of hanging up our stockings to receive gifts, and the good bishop doing his deeds of love in the night certainly must have been like our Santa Claus. This last story tells of the true Christmas spirit and the gift of love which God gave to the world when Christ was born. And so may this book of Christmas stories come right into your home, bring to you a message of Christmas cheer with a Merry Christmas to all from your story lady, Georgine Faulkner. A visit to Santa Claus Land. Once upon a time, there were two children, a little boy named Willie and a little girl named Annie. Now, they could hardly wait for Santa Claus to visit them, so every day they would say to their mother, "Oh, Mother, how many days until Christmas? Must we wait a whole month? Mother, 20 days more, 10 days more, 5 days more." How slowly the days drag on, Mother. Now, the busy mother felt the time slipping by all too rapidly, but the children counted the days on the calendar and grew more and more impatient each day. At the last, they shouted in glee, Santa Claus will visit us tonight, and tomorrow is Merry Christmas. They borrowed the longest and strongest stockings which they could find, and when their mother came to tuck them in snugly in bed and kiss them good night, Willie said, Do you know, Mother, when I go to prop my eyes wide all night for Santa Claus? So I, said Annie, and when he comes down the chimney, ask him where he gets all the toys. Oh, no, you must go right to sleep, and he will come all the faster, answered Mother, as she turned out the lights and left the nursery. After she'd gone downstairs, we were to Anna, Say, Annie, are you awake? Yes, I am, but I'm getting so sleepy. I wish you would hurry up and come right now. Let's sing our Christmas carols for him. And so the two children sang all the songs they knew. My, it does seem so long to wait. I am most sleepy, said Willie with a big yawn. I'll tell you, we can take turns. You watch for him a while, Annie, and then I shall. After a time, Annie called out to Willie, Willie, I'm so sleepy. It's your turn to watch. But she received no answer. The next thing they knew, Annie and Willie were away up in the North Pole country with snow and ice around them on all sides, and right in front of them stood a high ice wall. How I wish we could go through this wall, said Willie. And just as he said this, ice seemed to open, and there was a great gateway leading into the strangest garden that you have ever heard of in all of your life. It was a garden all of toys, and Annie and Willie could hardly believe their eyes as they saw the wonders about them. Hanging right over the wall, there appeared to be something growing like morning glories. When they looked again, the children saw that they were not morning glories at all, but small toy talking machines. While on a trumpet vine nearby, they saw growing like flowers real toy trumpets. While Willie picked a trumpet at once and played on it, toot, 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 toot. You must not touch the toys, Willie, gasped poor Annie in fright. We don't know who owns this garden. Just then, the children saw the gardener of this wonderful land of toys. He was the merriest old man, dressed all in red, and his coat and hat were trimmed in ermine. His hair and beard were as white as the snow, and his cheeks were red, rosy apples, while his eyelids twinkled like stars. The children knew who this gardener was at once. You may be sure. Why, it was Santa Claus. Of course, he was cutting down a crop of whistles with his sickle. He had a large red sack at his side and smaller bags nearby, and he was so happy that he sang as he worked. In my wonderful garden of toys, growing a crop for the good boys and girls, dolls, cannons, drums, candy, cake, sugar plums, all grow in my garden of toys. He was just ready to make up another verse when he spied the two children. Ho, ho, ho! He laughed merrily. How did you two children come here? Please, Mr. Santa Claus, said Willie shyly. We were waiting for you to visit us, and the next thing we knew, we were in this garden. We don't know how we came here, but now that we're here, may we not help you pick some toys? Indeed you may, said Santa Claus. I need two such helpers. I was just wondering how I could gather all these toys in time for tomorrow. Willie, will you please go over to the garden bed in the corner and pull up some tops? Pull up some tops, echoed Willie in amazement. But he took a red sack and went to the garden and began to pull up toy tops. There were large tops growing like turnips and little tops growing like beets and radishes. There were all kinds of tops. Some would hum, 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 and make music while Willie pulled them up. Next, Willie climbed a tree and began to pick red marbles, glowing just like cherries. And he found purple and blue marbles growing on the trellis, just like grapes. So he filled many small bags with marbles. He also climbed another tree where he thought he saw apples and oranges growing, but then when he came near them, he found different colored balls. So he picked a bag of balls for Santa. Oh, Santa, may I help too? Asked Annie. Indeed you may, my child, he answered. How should you like to pick dollies? So all this time Annie was busy getting him dollies, and she was so very happy. You dear, dear dollies, Annie said as she hugged each in turn. How happy all little girls will be when they find these dollies Christmas morning. They were large dolls with the cutest bonnets on their heads, growing just like roses, and other dollies with the dearest pointed hats growing up like hollyhocks. And then there were the tiny dollies like pansies, turning their pretty little faces up towards Annie. Presently, Santa began to water the grass, and suddenly every blade of grass was a tiny toy soldier, with his musket erectly held, while soldier tents like mushrooms sprang up all around. Warships, sailing boats, steamboats, motorboats, rowboats, and canoes were all out on a lake nearby, but they could never sink, for the lake was a large looking glass, and fishes and ducks and swans were swimming on the looking glass stream. The children rushed from one garden to another and saw so many things to pick that they were kept very busy helping Santa. Oh, see those pumpkins and the squashes over there on the vines, exclaimed Willie. But when he went to pick them, he found drums, large and small, footballs and basketballs lying on the ground like melons, and pumpkins turned brown. Whee! Isn't this jolly? See those funny brown leaves blowing in the wind, called Annie. Why, they're all sizes and shapes. When the children came near to pick them, they found no leaves at all, but brown teddy bears with their arms and feet outstretched. The children hugged them in their arms, and the teddy bear gave a little squeak of glee, for they were so glad to be gathered in with the harvested up toys. Suddenly, overhead, the children heard a whirling noise, and when they looked up, it seemed as if a great swarm of dragonflies and butterflies were hovering over them. Ha ha ha! Laughed Santa Claus as he watched the surprised children. Those are new toys. They only lately have come to my land. But here, take these butterfly nets and try to catch a few of them. And when Annie and Willie these were not dragonflies, brought these toys down a little nearer, they saw that these were not dragonflies or butterflies, but toy airships. Tiny toy trains went gliding over steel rails, across switches, under tunnels, over bridges, and stopped at stations quite like the really, truly trains. How would you like to see my farm? Asked Santa Claus. And the next thing Annie and Willie knew, they were in a Toyland barnyard. Houses, fences, and barns with stalls for horses and cows, and everything as complete as a real farm. Horses rocked to and fro or rolled about on wheels. Toy lambs so woolly and white said baa, baa, baa when their heads were turned to one side. There were also a menagerie of wild animals nearby, elephants and tigers, lions and monkeys, more animals than you can tell about were there, and they looked so real that at first Annie felt like running and to hide behind Santa Claus. Then Santa Claus led them through the toy villages, and they really felt like giants when they looked down on all the doll houses and different stories. Toy theaters, toy post office, toy grocery stores, toy meat markets, and all these stores. Then Santa Claus took them far away from the villages, out through where the sugar plum trees were growing. And after that, bags with candy, he led them out to the Christmas tree forest. Here they found Christmas trees growing with gold and silver tinsel and hung with glass balls and chains, while tiny colored lights were twinkling through the branches. Santa Claus had to gather these trees and pack them with great care. The next thing the children knew, Santa Claus had taken them right into his home. There they saw a dear old lady with some snow white hair who was sewing some dolls' clothes. She was dressing some of the dollies that had sprung up without any clothes. It was Mrs. Santa Claus, of course, and she hugged and kissed the children. She said to Santa Claus, "The dears, where did you find them?" "Out in the garden," answered Santa Claus. "I don't know how they came here, but they are excellent helpers. They have been helping me gather my toys. I shall soon be ready now, after I do a little more work in my shop. You know, my dear, I must first test my winding toys, for that clockwork machinery does break so easily." As he talked, Santa Claus took off his cap and coat, rolled up his sleeves, and went right to work. He wound and tested each toy, and Willie helped him by handing him the key for each one. There was a honk, 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 a toot, 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 a chug, 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 and a clang, clang, clang as automobiles, boats, engines, fire engines, and all kinds of mechanical toys went running about the shop like mad. Next, Santa was working with his saw and plane, his hammer and nails, and with a rap and a tap, he finished the roof of a doll's house. Mrs. Santa had dressed all the dolls and furnished the doll houses. "What a cute little kitchen!" exclaimed Annie. "Oh, Willie, did you see this dining room? The cunning parlor with its little bedroom. How I should have to play the dolls in this house." Then Annie turned to Mrs. Santa Claus and said, "May I not help you? I could put your needle or help in some way." "Why, so you may, my dear," answered Mrs. Santa Claus. "My eyes are getting old, and if you will thread my needle, it will be a great help." So Annie threaded the needle and helped Mrs. Claus to dress the last doll and then pack all the clothes in the new doll's trunk. Santa Claus sat at his desk and finished writing a story and drawing the last pictures when suddenly the clock struck. Ding dong ding. 12 times it struck, and Mrs. Santa Claus said, "It is time you were up and away, sir." She helped Santa Claus into his big cloak and put on his high boots and his warm gloves and pulled his cap down over his ears. Just then the reindeer were heard prancing and pawing outside, impatiently to be off and away. Santa Claus bundled his big pack of toys into his sled and put in all the Christmas trees. He kissed Mrs. Santa on both cheeks and with a big smack on the lips called out, "Good time, Mother," and picked up Annie and Willie as if they were live dolls, tucking one under each arm, and dashed out to the magic sleigh. They seemed fairly to fly through the air, and the moon and the stars seemed to dance in the sky as they went on faster and faster. Then they came down nearer and nearer to earth, with the lights of the great city gleaming like fireflies far below. The next thing Annie and Willie knew, they were on the roof of their own home. The next thing they knew, they were down the chimney, and there they were, right in their own little beds. The sunlight was streaming into their eyes, and their mother was calling, "Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, sleepyhead! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!" they both shouted as they bounced out of bed and rushed for their stockings, which were fairly bulging with toys. And Annie was soon hugging and kissing a new dolly, while Willie was blowing a new trumpet. In the other room stood a large Christmas tree, which had come from the Christmas tree forest. "Oh, we know where these toys come from," said Willie. "They came from the garden of toys, for we visited Santa Claus last night. Now, tonight, when you go to bed, close your eyes tightly and go to sleep, and I am sure you too can pay a visit to Santa Claus Land. Merry Christmas." So, welcome in, everybody. Thank you guys for being here, listening to our Christmas story. This is definitely one that is perfect for all ages. So, without much more ado, we shall just go ahead and roll into our second story of the night. Get a little sip. our next story. I love Christmas mice. Squeaky and the Scare Box. Once upon a time, there lived, in a hole in the pantry wall, a family of mice. There was a father mouse, a mother mouse, and three baby mice. They were called the Velvet family because their fur looked like soft gray velvet. One little mouse was named Sharp Eyes, only they nicknamed him Sharpie because his eyes were so sharp and bright he could see everything, even in the darkest closet and holes. One was named Sniffy because he could sniff and smell anything. Good to eat, however, it might be hidden, and the tiniest little mouse was named Squeaky because he had such a shrill little voice. He was constantly singing, ee, ee, ee. Now, the mother mouse was very wise, and she had taught her babies to scamper and hide whenever they saw the old cat tiptoeing about. The mother mouse would say, "Beware of the cat," and the little mice would run so quickly that although Mrs. Kitty did not even meow or purr when she walked through the pantry, she never had been able to catch any of the Velvet family. But many of their little cousins and other relatives had been caught by the old cat, so the little mice obeyed their mother and always hid when the cat was near. The mother mouse also warned her babies to beware of the trap. She said, "I know, Snake, you will smell the cheese, and Sharpie, you will peer into the little round house and see the cheese hanging there, and Squeak will call to you all to come in and get a bite. But if you do not heed my words, you will be caught with a cruel spring and wire and choked to death. So mind what I tell you and do not eat any cheese unless I am with you." And the little mice answered, "Eat, yes, mother, yes, eat, eat." And their little shrill voices, they promised to remember to do just what their mother told them. I could not begin to tell you about all the frolics of those mice had together, but I will tell you about their Christmas party. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The last touches had been put upon the tall Christmas tree standing in the living room. The father and mother had gone upstairs to bed, and when the children were nestled all snug in beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their head. But in the hole in the wall, the Velvet family were all wide awake. "Ee, ee, ee," squeaked Squeaky. "Why can't we creep into the big room with the tall Christmas tree? We have heard the children talking about that tree for days, and we've never seen a Christmas tree. So please, Mother Mouse, can we go out this time and see it?" "Yes," said Snippy. "Do let us go, Mother Mouse. Everything has been smelling so good lately, and the children and cook made long strings of popcorn. I nibbled a little piece that had dropped here on the pantry floor, and it tasted so good." "Yes, said Sharp Eyes, and I peered out her hole and saw some candy on a plate and some gingerbread cakes all ready for the children. Oh, I do want a bite of those good things. Please let us have a Christmas party, Mother Mouse. Now, don't tease children. I will ask your father, and if he says it's safe, why, then we shall go. Father Mouse heard them. He said, well, I will go out first and look carefully about, and then I will let you know if you dare to venture out. So Father Mouse crept softly through the pantry. He tiptoed down the long hall and into the living room. But the old cat was nowhere to be seen. For you must know, children, the house people were afraid that the cat might brush against the tree and break something. So poor Mrs. Kitty had been banished to the coal bin and was spending her Christmas Eve down in the cellar all alone, and she was howling and yowling because she was so angry. When the Father Mouse could not find the cat, he came back to the pantry and called out the glad tidings. The coast is clear. Come out, children. Then all of the Velvet family came scrambling down from their hole in the wall, their whiskers fairly trembling in their eagerness. They crept through the pantry and tiptoed along the great hall and into the living room, where stood a tall Christmas tree. And when they saw the wonderful tree, they were so happy that they squeaked again and again in their joy. Then each mouse took a hold of its tail as though it were a long train, and holding it up very carefully, danced and danced in the moonlight. They ran around the tree, examining everything. On the floor, they found a wonderful doll's house. How lovely it would be to live here, they squeaked. They ran up and down the stairs, overturning the chairs, pulled off the bedclothes, and climbed into the beds. Then they went into the dining room and sat down in the tiny chairs. When they found the table that was just set with play food, they did not like it, for of course it was not good to eat. Then Snippy said, I smell that good popcorn again. Let's climb up into the Christmas tree and get some. So they began to climb up the tree. They nibbled the popcorn chains, they nibbled the candy canes, and the candy hanging in the stocking bags. They found the gingerbread cakes, and each took a bite. Suddenly Sharp Eyes said, Come here, I see a mouse, but he doesn't belong to our furry family at all. I should say not, said Snippy. He smells so good. Why, he is good to eat, squeaked Squeak. And they all began to eat the chocolate mouse. Then they found another candy mouse, a nice pink one, and they were so busy eating it that they forgot to watch and listen until bang! Suddenly the door was thrown open and the electric lights were turned on. With a squeak of warning, the Velvet family scrambled and tumbled down through the branches of the tree, scattering pell-mell across the floor, through the pantry, and back to their home and safety. There was the Father Mouse, the Mother Mouse, Sharp Eyes, and Snippy. But where was Squeaky? What had become of poor Squeaky? Now, as Squeaky tried to climb down the tree, he fell, heels over head, down again, until he was caught in a funny square box. An ugly-looking man with black hair and a black beard seemed to be hopping right out of the box, and when Squeaky saw the lights turn on, he thought it was best to hide under the skirt of this weird man. He nestled down and lay very still, hardly breathing. He had been taught never to move when danger was so near, so he did not wiggle, not even a whisker. He heard voices. The poor, that house people were talking. Yes, said the children's father, it would have been a shame to forget the strain. I want it to come right out from under the tree. And father and mother began to arrange tiny tracks and switches. When all was in place, mother looked once more at the wonderful tree. Why, look at the jack-in-the-box. He's hanging way out of the box, she said. That will never do. It will spoil all the fun. Teddy would love to see it fly out at him and would call it the scare box. I must fix it back in place. Then the mother pushed the jack with his black beard and black hair down into the box, and she shut and locked the lid. Pookie, hidden under the weird man's skirts, felt the springs close tightly about him and shrieked one shrill "ee" of fright. The father said, I've never heard such a perfect squeak. It's a wonderful toy they make for children. Now, in my day, his voice drifted off as he turned out the lights and followed the mother upstairs to bed. Poor little Squeaky. On all sides there seemed to be big springs coiled about him. I'm in a trap, he moaned, and they didn't even give me a mite of cheese to eat. But then nothing seems to hurt me. This is not the way Mother Mouse said. It does not pinch me or choke me. I wonder what kind of trap this is. A weird man with a spring for a body. Well, I am safe for a while, but I wonder if he will ever let me get out again. I want to go home. And poor Squeaky cried himself to sleep. In the morning, he heard the shouts of Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, and it seemed as though the big tree trembled in all its branches as the toys were taken down one by one, and such a noise was heard, drums beating, horns tooting, children shouting, just see our new dollhouse. Oh, see my train, how fast it goes over the tracks. Just see this beautiful dolly. She can open and shut her eyes. And she says, Mama, Papa, whenever I pull the string. Ee, groaned poor Squeaky. I can squeak, Mama, Papa, that way too, if I would only let me out so that I could go home to my Mama and Papa. As if to answer his wish, Squeaky suddenly felt the box lifted down from the tree. Come here, Teddy, said the children's mother. Here's a new scare box. We'll have some fun. Now carefully watch me, and we will open the lid. Teddy leaned against his mother's knee, watching closely. Are you ready? Well, let us count. 1, 2, 3. And the mother opened the lid. Out jumped the man with the black beard and black hair, and with a loud squeak of joy, out jumped Squeaky. Ee, ee, said Squeaky, ee, and the jack-in-the-box, wee, yelled and the small boy in delight. "Oh, ee, ee, ee," shrieked the mother as she threw the box on the floor, and holding her skirt up high, she jumped onto the chair, screaming, "A mouse, a mouse, a mouse!" "Where, where?" they all shouted in chorus. But little Squeaky whisked away so fast that they caught only a glimpse of his velvety fur and his long tail as he dashed across the long hall back to the pantry and home for safety. Squeaky gave weird little squeaky sounds, half sobs, half laughs, as he told his father and mother mouse the whole story of his night in the house with the weird man with springs for a body. And there was a great rejoicing among the Velvet family over the return of Squeaky. In the living room, they heard the children's father laughing as he helped their mother climb down from the chair. "Well," he said, "how did you enjoy Teddy's scare box?" And that's another Merry Christmas story. So thank you all for gathering tonight. We have a little more time. We could probably do the next one. A Christmas Tree for Santa Claus. Story number 3. Once upon a time, in the land of fairies, planned a Christmas surprise for Santa Claus. "I wonder what we can do to make him happy," asked the Fairy Queen. "He always makes other people happy." "I know," answered the Fairy King. "Let's give him a Christmas party, and after he returns from his long journey of love all around the world, let us lead him to the Christmas tree forest. And there we will have a tree all trimmed and ready for him." "Hurrah, hurrah!" shouted all the little brownies, elves, fairies, and nymphs. "Hurrah, hurrah! What fun we shall have! A Christmas tree for dear old Father Santa Claus. We will ask Mother Santa Claus to help us plan it, and she will tell us just what he needs and would enjoy the most." And the Fairy King, "Now, you must know, children, that all of the brownies, elves, fairies, and nymphs always called Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus father and mother, because they seem like a father and mother to all of these little people, and they always help Santa Claus and his good wife make get all their work done on time for Christmas without all of these good little fairies to help them. So, of course, when they plan for a Christmas tree, they ask Mother Santa Claus to help them. "Have everything ready," said Mother Santa Claus, "and after Father has gone on his long journey, we will go out to the forest and trim the tree and have everything in place before he comes home again. We will keep it a great secret, for if he hears of all of our fun, then the surprise will be gone. We will never let him hear a whisper from us," said the fairies. "We will work and wait patiently until Christmas Eve." Then the fairies, true to their promise, worked and worked, helping Father and Mother Santa Claus make the Christmas gifts, and they were all very busy. Some of these dear little fairies helped Mother Santa Claus to make the doll clothes and to furnish the doll houses, hemming tiny table fringe, little napkins, making sheets and blankets and pillowcases for the dollies' beds. They were such happy little fairies that they sang as they worked. The Christmas fairies find pleasure as they work for the good girls and boys for they know that children will treasure and value these new Christmas toys. The little carpenter elves like to help Father Santa Claus in his big workshop as he sawed the wood brought in by the forest elves and brownies, and with plane and hammer he made houses for the dolls, chairs, tables, and sleds, and all kinds of wooden toys. The mountain dwarfs and goblins from the mines brought in the iron ore, which they heated red hot, and helped Santa Claus make the engines, trains of the cars, the automobiles, fire engines, and boats, and all the toys of iron and steel. They also brought him gold and silver and sparkling stone, while the water nymphs gave him pearls and coral and softly tinted shells, which Santa Claus and his skilled helpers soon made into beautiful jewelry to give some of the big grown up children on Christmas. Everybody is a child at Christmas time, said Santa Claus to his good wife, and even if people do feel too large to play with dolls and drums, they still must have their trinkets and things to make them happy. Yes, answered Mrs. Santa Claus, but we must have useful presents too, Father. So she would knit stockings and mittens and make one cats and hoods and mufflers, new coats and dresses. And when the soft skins of the animals were brought in, she would make nice fur coats and muffs for all the big mamas and little fur sets for the little girlies. And then she would make teeny weeny scraps of fur that were left over and make fur sets for the dollies. Oh, Mrs. Santa Claus was very sensible old lady, you may be sure. Well, I could not begin to take time to tell you about all of the marvelous things that were made in that wonderful workshop, nor how busily Santa Claus worked in his big desk writing stories while the artist fairies drew the pictures for him. For I do want to tell you how all these little helpers gave Santa Claus his Christmas tree. When the last Christmas Eve came, Mother Santa Claus helped Santa Claus bundle up in his big red coat and pack his toys in his magic sleigh. Then she gave him a big kiss, and he gave her a big hug and a kiss and said, "Goodbye, Mother. Merry Christmas. I will be back when all is done. Goodbye." When all is done, said Mrs. Santa Claus, chuckling to herself, we shall have it all done when he returns. Come, fairies. And Mrs. Santa Claus, with all the brownies, elves, and fairies, went to the Christmas tree forest. The frost fairies selected the tallest fir tree, which they hung all over with shiny, silvery threads of frost, while icicles hung from each branch, glimmering and glistening in the moonlight. "What a beautiful tree, frost fairies!" they all cried in chorus. "But nothing is too good for our dear Father Santa Claus." Then each put his present on the tree for Santa Claus. Mrs. Santa Claus had made him a new beautiful red coat with a cap to match, and she had trimmed it with soft white ermine. Some of the tailor fairies had helped her. They had also made him a new pair of trousers. The little cobbler elves had made him new pair of tall boots, and the glove maker had made him a pair of warm gloves. "We want his fingers to be warm," they said. Some of the fairies brought some animal skins and made them into nice fur robes. The water nymphs brought him a new pipe with an amber mouthpiece out from under the sea, for they said he had smoked that old clay one for so long that he ought to have a new pipe. The forest fairy placed under the tree a wonderful new magic sled, which was much larger than his old one. He has to carry so much nowadays, they said. The mountain dwarfs had made for him some new metal sleigh bells, which jingled with the merriest Christmas music. Suddenly, they all heard the old bells tinkling on Santa's old sled, and they rushed back to the house to welcome him home. "What are you doing out here, Mother?" asked Santa Claus. "And all the brownies, elves, fairies, nymphs, mountain dwarfs out here with you? Why, don't you know this time is for rest before we go to work for another year?" "No, not tonight, Father Santa Claus. We are so happy we'll be dancing until morning. Come with us to the Christmas tree forest." And with all the fairy helpers pushing and pulling him, and Mother Santa Claus holding him tightly by the hand, Santa Claus was brought out to his own Christmas tree. "Merry Christmas! Surprise, surprise, Merry Christmas!" shouted all the fairies, and poor Santa Claus was certainly so surprised that he did not know which way to turn. "A Christmas tree, and for me!" gasped Santa Claus in bewilderment. "Yes, yes, for you, for you!" they all shouted. "You're always making other people have a Merry Christmas, and now we wanted you to have a Merry Christmas. It is your very own Christmas tree, Father Santa Claus." And they brought out his presents and gave them to him. And when they had dressed him in his new shirt, his eyes twinkled with pleasure as he said, "Why, I don't even know myself. My old clothes were quite shabby and are tarnished with ash and soot, and Dancer and Prancer and Donner and Blitzen and all the reindeer will hardly know what to make of this new, beautiful magic sleigh. And just listen to the merry magic of our new sleigh bells. How good this warm robe will be for me. Sometimes it is pretty cold, and my old one is getting thin and worn. A new pipe! Oh, that is fine. My old one is just a stump of a pipe, which I had to hold tightly between my teeth. And now, with this new one, the smoke will encircle my head like a wreath. How good you are to me," said Father Santa Claus. "And how did you ever plan it?" "Oh, good Mother Santa Claus helped us. Without her help, we could not have had any Christmas tree surprise party at all." "Yes," said Father Santa Claus, "it always takes the good mother to plan and make a real Christmas party." Then the fairy helpers surprised Mother Santa Claus by bringing out a new dress which they had made for her, with a soft lace collar and a white cap. And the mountain dwarfs gave her a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles to help her as she did her sewing, and a new gold pin set with coral was brought to her by the sea nymphs. And then Father and Mother Santa Claus, dressed in their new Christmas clothes, and stood under the sparkling tree trimmed by the frost fairies. Overhead, the rainbow fairies came out and flashed their bright lights high in the northern sky, while all the Christmas fairy helpers, brownies, elves, fairies, mountain dwarfs, and nymphs danced around and around them in a fairy ring and called happily, "Merry Christmas, Father Santa Claus! Merry Christmas, Mother Santa Claus! Merry Christmas to all the world." So we have more. There's only one more little book, a story in this book, so I think I'll go ahead and finish the whole book tonight. Well, we'll read this one. The Legend of Saint Nicholas. Once upon a time, there lived in Myra a good man named Nicholas. When he was a young man, his father and mother died of the plague, and he was left the sole heir of their vast estate. But he looked upon all this money as belonging to God and felt that he himself was merely the steward of God's mercies. So he went about everywhere doing good and sharing his riches with all of those that were in need. Now, there lived in that country a certain nobleman who had 3 beautiful daughters. He had been very rich, but had lost all of his property and became so poor that he did not know what to do to provide for his family. His daughters were anxious to be married, but their father had no money to give them for their dowries, and in that country no maiden could marry unless she had a marriage portion or a dowry. They were so very poor that they could scarcely get any food to eat. Their clothes were so worn and ragged that they would not go out of the house, and their father was overcome with shame and sorrow. When the good Nicholas heard of their troubles, he longed to help them. He knew that the father was proud and that he would be hard to give him money, so he thought that it would be best to surprise them with a gift. Then Nicholas took some gold and, tying it in a long silken purse, went at once to the home of the poor nobleman. It was night, and the beautiful maidens were fast asleep, while the broken-hearted father, too wretched to go to bed, sat by the fireside watching and praying. Nicholas stood outside, wondering how he could bestow his gift without being seen. Suddenly the moon came out from behind the cloud, and he saw that a window in the house was open. Creeping softly to the open window, he threw the purse right into the room, where it fell at the feet of the nobleman. The father picked up the purse and was much surprised to find it filled with gold pieces. Awakening his daughters, the father said, "See this purse which came through the window and fell at my feet? It is indeed a gift from heaven. God has remembered us in our time of need." After they had rejoiced together, they agreed to give most of the gold to the oldest daughter, so that she should have her dowry and could wed the young man that she loved. Not long after that, Nicholas filled another silken purse with gold, and again he went by night so that no one should see him. And he threw this purse also through the open window. And when the father saw this golden gift, he again gave thanks. The money he gave to the second daughter, who, like the sister, at once married the man of her choice. Meanwhile, the father was very curious to find out who was so kind to them, for he had wished to thank the person who had come in the night to help them with their golden gifts. So he watched and waited night after night, and after a time, the good Nicholas came with another silken purse filled with gold pieces for the youngest daughter. He was just about to throw it into the room when the nobleman rushed from the house and seized him by his long robe and knelt before him, saying, "Oh, good Nicholas, servant of God, why seek to hide thyself?" And he kissed his hands and feet and tried to thank him. But Nicholas answered, "Do not thank me, my good man, but thank the Heavenly Father who has sent me to you in answer to your prayers. I am but his messenger to help those who trust in him. Tell no man of these gifts of gold, nor who brought them to you in the night, for my deeds are done in his name." Thus the young daughter of the nobleman was married, and she and her father and sisters all lived happily the rest of their lives. The good Nicholas went about from place to place, and wherever he went, he did deeds of kindness, so that all the people loved him. One time, he took a long journey to the Holy Land, and when he was upon the sea, there came a terrible storm, so that the ship was tossed about and was almost wrecked. Then all the sailors gave up hope. But the good Nicholas said, "Fear not, our Heavenly Father will bring us safely into harbor." Then he knelt and prayed to God, and the storm ceased, and the boat was brought safely to land. Whereupon the sailors fell at the feet of Nicholas and thanked him. He answered them humbly, "Thank your Father who is in heaven, for he is the ruler of us all. He is who rules the earth and the sky and the sea, and who, in his good mercy, spared our lives that we may serve him." When Nicholas returned from Palestine, he went to the city of Myra, where he was appointed a bishop. After that, he preached God's word and went about doing good all of his life. When he died, the people said, "We will not call him Bishop Nicholas, but we shall call him Saint Nicholas. For if ever there was a saint upon earth, it was our good Nicholas." And so, to this day, he is called Good Saint Nicholas. Now, in many countries, they tell the story of Good Saint Nicholas and how he goes about the earth on Christmas time, bringing gifts of love to all who deserve them. And because he put his gift of gold in long silken purses, our children today hang up their long stockings to hold his gifts. And when the children are good, he fills their stockings with sweetmeats, toys, and trinkets. But if they have been naughty, they will find a bunch of switches showing that they deserve to be punished. We all know that on Christmas Eve, St. Nicholas will come in the night, for he never likes to be seen. And we all know that he will live, for is he not the spirit of love? And love can never die. So every Christmas, let us give our gifts as he did those silken purses so long ago without anyone knowing about it. Let our gifts be a surprise. And we too can have the spirit of love and join in the celebration of Christmas with good Saint Nicholas. And the last story of this book, called The Gift of Love. It was a cold night for the part of the world, and the shepherds who were out watching their flocks upon the hillside drew their heavy cloaks about them. They had built a campfire to give them warmth, and they sat in a group about the bright blaze as they told stories to each other. "You speak of the coming of the king, grandsire," said the young shepherd boy eagerly as he leaned towards the old man who was talking. "Tell us more about the king." "Yes, boy," answered the old man. "I will tell you the tale as my mother told it to me. Long, long ago, there was a shepherd boy named David who wandered on these very hills near Bethlehem, keeping watch over his father's sheep. David heard the story of a promised king who was to be sent from God to rule over all his people. And David was so happy that he played upon his harp, and he led the sheep through the green pastures and beside the still waters, and sang of God as the heavenly shepherd. When David grew up to be a man, he became a king and wore royal robes and a golden crown upon his head, and he ruled over all his people. After David came King Solomon, and no king could rival the grandeur of his palace and court. Since then, many kings have ruled over us, but the promised king has not come upon earth, and the song of David has not yet been fulfilled. Oh, how I wish that I might see the king," said the boy earnestly. "You are young, boy, and who knows, maybe you will live to see a time when these prophecies come true. But I am old and weary with waiting and working, and I may never live to see the promised king. Yet I know that the word of God will come true, and that he will send his only beloved Son to rule the earth." As the wind whistled over the hillside, the sheep huddled more closely together. "Our little lambs will suffer with cold," said the shepherd boy. "No," answered his father. "Look at the way the mother sheep lies closely about them, protecting the lambs with their warm bodies. No, the old sheep may feel the chill of the wind, but they will not let their babies suffer. Just look at the little baby lamb," said the boy. "See, it is curled up snugly by its mother. Oh, I do hope no harm will come to it, for it is the tiniest lamb of the flock, and I love it. Do you know, Father, I shall call it Snow White, for it is like the white snow which we sometimes see on the far distant mountain peaks." "Come, boy," said the father, "you have rested all day, so you watch the flock and the fire for a time. I will lie down here by the grandsire and take a nap." The boy laid upon the ground, looking at the campfire smoke curling up towards the sky. Then he looked at the sleeping shepherds stretched out upon the ground. And as his eyes rested upon the old man, he remembered the story, and he said softly, "How I should like to see the king." The cold wind seemed to die down, and the clouds went across the sky like a flock of scurrying sheep leaving the stars twinkling brightly in the dark blue vault of the heavens. "How beautiful it is, and how still," he said. He looked again at the group of sleeping shepherds, and then looked at the sheep sleeping. As he watched, he saw his little lamb stir uneasily. "Poor little baby, poor Snow White, I believe that he is lonely. I will hold it under my warm coat and protect it while the mother sheep sleeps." And so the boy lifted the baby lamb in his strong arms and opened his coat and held it closely in his bosom, while the mother sheep slept peacefully by his side. The boy forgot to watch the fire, and it soon flickered and went out. He felt a strange chill over the land, and it was so still, so very still, that he wished the men would waken, or that one of the sheep would bleat, for he felt lonely and afraid, and he knew not why. Suddenly he saw a bright light flashing through the heavens. Was he asleep or dreaming? He sat up and rubbed his eyes. No, that light was coming nearer and nearer, down, down towards the earth. Then he saw that the sheep were stirring uneasily, and he heard them bleating, for they were frightened from their sleep. The shepherds too were awake. "What is the meaning of this strange light?" said one. "Has a star fallen from the sky?" asked another. "See, this golden cloud of glory rests over us. It is so dazzling bright that I dare not look upon it." The shepherds seized their staffs, and some of them covered their faces with their cloaks, as for they were very frightened. The old man went down upon his knees and looked up reverently, while the boy stood motionlessly gazing spellbound at the radiant vision. For as they watched, they saw in the cloud of the golden glory a beautiful angel who had come down to earth and stood upon the hillside among them. When they saw this messenger from God, the shepherds trembled with fear, and the angel said, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you glad tidings of joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. You shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, laying in a manger." And as the angel ceased speaking, suddenly the heavens opened, and there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts who were singing and praising God, saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill towards man." Then the bright light was gone, and the shepherds looked up and earnestly towards the sky. "Truly it was a message from God," said the shepherd as he bowed his white head. "God has sent us an angel to tell us that the promised king has come." But the angel said it was a babe, and it was wrapped in swaddling clothes and laying in a manger. Questioned the boy, "Is it not strange for a prince to come to such a lowly place?" "Yes," said the old man, "it seems strange, but we know that he is truly the gift of love from God, his only Son, who has been promised to us for lo these many years. I thank God that my old eyes had been permitted to see the heavenly vision. Come, we must go in haste to find him. What gifts of love shall we carry to the king, grandsire? Whispered the boy. The most precious one we have, answered the old man, that which we love the best. But we are shepherds. We have no gold nor silver or sparkling gems fit for a king, said one of the shepherds. What then can we carry to this child? I know, said the boy, as he looked lovingly down upon the little lamb which he was still holding in his strong young arms. We can give him this lamb, snow white, for it is the purest, whitest little lamb from our flock. I love it, and it's been the best that we've had to offer, and surely good Father in heaven knows that we are bringing our gift of love to the king. The boy is right, said the old man. The baby lamb, the purest of the flock, is truly our gift of love. So the shepherd went in haste down the hillside, the boy holding in his arms the baby lamb. Once it bleated softly, ma, ma, as though it called its mother, and the boy seemed to hear his mother sheep on the hillside calling out, ba, ba, as though she were calling her baby. Poor mother sheep, she will grieve for her little one, said the boy. But if she could only understand, she would be glad to give her lamb to the king. At last they reached the little town of Bethlehem, and they came, to a low stable built upon the hillside. There they found their king, a tiny baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, as the angel had said, and laying in a manger. They saw the cattle standing near, and Joseph watching over the Holy Mother Mary and the heavenly child. This was no place home. There were no royal robes of state, but the shepherds knew that the word of the angels were true, and that this babe was their promised king. The heavenly light was streaming from the face of the Holy Child, and the shepherds covered their face, for they could not look upon its radiance. Then they fell upon their knees and worshiped the child, and thanked God that the gift of love had been given to all the wanting world. The boy looked on with wondering eyes, and then he held out the little lamb, and the baby smiled into the eyes of the boy and stretched out his tiny hand as though he would take the lamb. Then the boy sank slowly down upon his knees by the babe and placed at his feet the tiniest lamb from the flock, the gift of love for our Christ child. And that is Christmas Stories as written by Georgianne Faulkner in 1916. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will see you tomorrow with some more stories of Christmas. Until then, Merry Christmas, guys.